In our next story from Nonsense Public Radio, Hong Kong democracy leader Jimmy Lai charged under new national security law. If you're unfamiliar with this national security law from China, it's extra-territorial. So that means that if you break this law from the United States or anywhere else in the world, that you will get an arrest warrant out for your arrest in mainland China, where you'll be getting locked up in the hole and they'll be beating you, doing some water torture on you, waterboarding. They're going to put you in really uncomfortable chairs, make you sit there for prolonged periods of time, put you in solitary confinement until you crack. Because you encourage Hong Kong to commit sedition, like I am doing right now. You cannot say Hong Kong needs to overthrow the dictator Winnie the Pooh, that dude who looks like Xi Jinping or Winnie the Pooh. You can't say that you got to overthrow the Chinese quote-unquote Communist Party, the ones that say that they're communists, but then they got money. How's that one happen? But you can't say that because they're losing control. And because they're losing control, that means they got to crack down. Because it's socialism versus communism, quote unquote. Except they don't got a flat social hierarchy over there. They have money. They got about 300 million impoverished Chinese out in the countryside, along with about 3 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps, re-education camps. And they got a steep social hierarchy with filthy, stinking rich Chinese up at the top of the ivory tower. They own massive international corporations. They have money, but the 300 million impoverished Chinese out in the countryside, who they use as a baby factory, they are getting used. The parents are just dropping the kids off with the grandparents, and the grandparents are raising the kids, and these bullshit piece of shit parents aren't even visiting their kids, but maybe once every couple of years. And their kids got to go to school. They got to walk for days to get to school, hours. And then they stay at school all week with a bunch of kids, up to like 80%, what they call forgotten kids. Or is it leftover kids? Left behind kids. They're the left behind kids because their parents went into the big city, because apparently communism is so good at taking care of your people that most of the people got to drop the kids off at the grandparents' house because they can't afford basic necessities. And then they use this dirty coal and they pollute the fuck out of China. I had to turn down the mic. And they say they're communist, but if you want to do business over there in China, where most of people are selling things up on side all the highways, you see Chinese people selling stuff. But if you want to sell stuff there, you got to pay off the corrupt Chinese quote-unquote Communist Party boss, the one that organizes all of the slave labor. And if you want to have access to it, you got to be a CCP mouthpiece. And if you talk back, you going to jail and they're going to beat you. And then they're trying to be the world's #1 superpower. They have about 50 to 100,000 full-time cyber security or cyber warfare agents that they are constantly hacking everything, stealing any last little bit of our intellectual property that they can get their hands on, and using it to what they call rob, replicate, and replace. So they force you to use their slave labor if you want to compete in the market. And then when you do that, they get really good at manufacturing your product. And then they rip your product off because they have all the access to your IP. And the Chinese Communist, quote unquote, Communist Party still owns the businesses. And so what do you call it when you can have private property? You have money, but the government has a dictatorship and they own all the businesses. You can run the business, but they have access to everything and they can use it for whatever they want. It's called National Socialism. You look it up, came up by this dude named Hitler. Adolf with the mustache. Right, the psycho killer. The genocidal maniac, that dude. But they said it's a different kind of Marxism. It's not Marxism that failed, that caused World War II and caused so many genocides, caused hundreds of millions of deaths over the past century. No, it's the culture that failed. And because of that, you got to get rid of the culture through what's called cultural Marxism. All right? And so this is where they say we can't have socialism here in America because the racist white man is holding down the minorities and the white women. They put a glass ceiling over top of them to force them to be moms of all things. It's so evil. How could you ever expect a woman to be a mom? Like that ever occurs in nature? I thought everybody was a cisgender, polyqueer, or a transsexual that is 2/3 man and 1/3 woman, or an androgynous person that you just kind of can't tell. But I guess that doesn't mean that they're actually a man or a woman. It's whatever they feel like. And if you say anything about this, you're the one who's the problem. You're the white privileged male that's oppressing all the women and put that glass ceiling over top the women so you can underpay them, right? So you can lock them up in the basement. You could stop them from working. Won't let them go to school. Let them have no friends. You raping them. You're beating them when you go home. You put burkas over their heads. You know that's me. Because I got a van full of burkas, baby. I got a van full of anti-abortion propaganda. If you know of any women's marches that you would like me to come and give out my anti-abortion pamphlets and sell burkas, these pamphlets are pretty good. They're pretty righteous. They got pictures of dead baby fetuses. And it says you're going to hell. You're a sinner. So we can't have these racist white males because they're keeping the women down, making them so the white woman can't rise up to the top. And they underpaying all them minorities because these white people, they out buying all these flashy cars and Air Jordans and stuff to make them look like the pimp so they can hook up with bitches and party and do drugs. Instead, they putting their money into their kids so that the kids are better off than them. And then the minorities don't do it. Instead, they spend their money on drugs or a big truck or a fancy car with a nice stereo. And they don't spend the money on education for their kids. And then they say it's racism. So we got to take the white man out And why are they doing all this stuff? Because China's trying to be the #1 superpower. China has been paying off people in the Democrat Party. China has been hacking every system that they can to steal any sort of intellectual property they can so they can defeat capitalism and overthrow the world with socialism. And if you do anything to try to stop them, you're going to go to jail and they're going to beat you. Let's read on in this article. Jimmy Lai, the prominent Hong Kong media mogul and democracy activist we are calling the leader, has been charged with endangering national security by colluding with a foreign country. The charge handed down on Friday makes Lai, publisher of the China skeptic Apple Daily tabloid, the most prominent individual yet charged under the controversial law that Beijing imposes on Hong Kong earlier this year. It's not just Hong Kong. It's the rest of the world. It's extraterritorial. You got a problem with it, they're going to come for you. They're going to try to shut your business down. They'll put out fake Yelp reviews if you criticize the Chinese Communist Party through their network of cybersecurity military personnel. They got between 50 and 100,000 and 150,000 at any given time. You can count on about 100,000 Chinese military hitting us with cyber attacks left and right. And if you question the CCP, they're going to put in bad reviews about your companies. They're going to get you shut down. The charge represents the gravest legal danger yet for Lai, who has become a frequent target of the Hong Kong government and its quote-unquote Communist Party backers in Beijing. The founder of Next Digital was also arrested last April for allegedly organizing illegal protest against Beijing's encroachment on Hong Kong. Lai was arrested again with several other individuals, including both his sons, in August, this time under suspicion of violating the national security law. Lai did not face formal charges at the time and was soon released on bail. This time, though, he has little hope for such quick release. Lai was taken into custody earlier this month, along with several senior colleagues at Next Digital, for allegedly violating their terms of their office building lease. And those were, Joshua, we covered this on, I think, issue number 14 of this show. Might have been, no, it was issue number 113. And they had, at that point in time, Jimmy Lai chained up to shackled on the post. And a judge deeming Lai is a flight risk denied him bail, but ensured that one of Hong Kong's wealthiest men will be behind bars until at least next April. Keep Jimmy Lai in your prayers. He's a good man. Lai, 73, is expected to appear in court Saturday. The outspoken critic of Beijing faces the prospect of extradition to China and life in prison under the sweeping national security law the country imposed last summer. He is hardly the only one in severe legal jeopardy, though. The law that Beijing passed late June over strong international objection and massive protest in Hong Kong broadly criminalizes four activities: secession, which I am encouraging Hong Kong to do; subversion of state power, which I am also encouraging Hong Kong to do; terrorism, I'm definitely not encouraging anybody to do any sort of terrorism; and collusion with foreign powers. Hey, if you want to collude with our foreign powers, bro, we got your back, homie. Collude with me. and set up a national security offices in Hong Kong not subject to local jurisdiction. Critics have called the law a flagrant power grab that shreds the semi-autonomy of the former British colony, has enjoyed since the return to Chinese control in 1997. And so I'm going to have to say the Chinese government reneged on the contract. So the contract was they were not going to be a communist or authoritarian dictatorship. They were going to transfer to capitalism, and we were going to help them. That was the contract. And then they broke the contract when they switched over to National Socialism. Whenever they started allowing private property and to allow a steep social hierarchy with 300 million impoverished Chinese out in the countryside, that they send all the parents, they leave the kids behind, and they have the parents go work to go make money to support their kids, and they can never make enough money because it's under socialism, and socialism is a scam. It doesn't work. Money doesn't make. It doesn't make itself. You got to make something and make money. It doesn't work when you don't own it. If you don't own it, you won't work for it. All these people out in China, they got these rundown houses. They call them nail houses, where they put these random nails in really random places to justify building code regulations so they could tear down your house later whenever they want to. They just come in, say, oh, we need your house. You know, you get the nail. This nail's not in the right place. We got to tear your house down. Let's just take your house. Nobody wants to fix anything up because they don't own it. They say, oh, yeah, no, we're communists. It's just that everybody who's a CCP mouthpiece, they get to run all the businesses and take all the money and keep the cash while you live poor and hardly have enough to make ends meet. They don't. They're living in poverty out there, in squalor, out in the sticks. They're burning dirty coal. That's where most of the pollution's coming from. People trying to heat their houses. Which I have a new fancy water heater. If you want to invest in my startup, I got a water heater that can sequester CO2 through breathing it in through a biomimicry process. I am looking for an investor. Hit me up on Twitter at RSS Commentary. Shoot me a DM. Indeed, since the law's passage, Hong Kong's government has embarked on widespread effort to crack down on dissident and rein in the pro-democracy demonstrations that have roiled the city for years. While just a handful of people have formally been charged under the law, among who Lai is the most prominent so far, hundreds of activists, including some of the most visible leaders of the protest, have been arrested for their activities in the region since midsummer. It's a shame. My heart goes out to the people of Hong Kong and China and Taiwan. They're wonderful people over there. They're very smart. They're very good with computers, with building things, with doing things that we as Americans would complain to high hell if we ever had to do. But they do it for almost nothing because they need the money and because they got the corrupt government that just takes almost all the money. They got some of these Chinese Communist Party bosses have got so much money that they got more money than Bill Gates snatched away in bribe money that people are paying under the table to these Chinese Nazi Party bosses. They saying they communists, but you got to pay them a bribe if you want to sell there. Right. Obviously, those two things don't work. You can't have money in communism. The only way you could do that is with National Socialism. But they'll tell you all day, no, we're just trying to fight for equality. We're not trying to maintain control. It's not like our family of people and our network of corrupt cronies that controls everything, and then you live out in squalor. Well, you're so poor you got to send your parents into the city to slave to make some other dude rich while you're living in squalor. And then your kids got to raise themselves. And you're just messing the kids up psychologically. These people in China are just, woo! Woo! They are nationalist as it gets. You go out where they got those Uyghur Muslims. If you are white, if you are not Chinese, you're going to have military following you everywhere. They're probably going to lock you up. They're going to search everything you got everywhere you go. You can only go to maybe one hotel within hundreds of miles, and they got it all bugged up. They know exactly where you're going at. They got you roped in, so they know exactly where you're going. They're xenophobic as it gets, but they'll tell you. They'll tell you left and right that that the white man is racist and that we're bad and that we shouldn't enforce our immigration laws, while at the same time they got about 3 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration re-education camps that they use for slave labor, hard labor. And the reason for that is because it's a psychological warfare operation. They want our country to get taken over by immigrants because they think the white man is racist, and that's why we can't have socialism over here, because he won't share with the minorities and the white man. And they've been using this tactic ever since the Korean War. In the Vietnam War, they used this tactic heavily to paint us as the white supremacist boogeyman to get their people to want to kill us. It's all a big lie, and most people are completely naive to it. They're blind to it. They think, oh, they're just anti-racist. They're just like good people, right? They're just like against racism, because that's what it's like. Anti-fascism. It just means that you're against fascism. I mean, what's wrong with being against fascism, right? Okay, so what if you say I'm anti-black, or if a black man is anti-white, or if a Latino is anti-black? What does that mean? That means that you're a bigot, not me. I'm not anti-black. I'm pro everybody. But if you are against another race, we call that racism. So if you're against fascism, that doesn't mean you're anti-fascism. Those are two different things. That means that you're the antagonist of anyone considered far right, far left, Antifa, far right, fascist. Then you come together and then you annihilate each other. Somebody who is anti-black and somebody who is anti-white will probably get in fights, possibly with weapons, might be deaths over race. Somebody who is anti-capitalist hates capitalism. They want to attack capitalism. And somebody who is anti-racist is against anyone who is racist, and they want to attack them and get rid of it. And that's the fundamental toxic poison pill that they're selling you when they're saying, no, we're just against fascism, or we're against racism, or we're against sexism. But the reality of the world is that not everybody is a feminist. Not everybody is not a racist. And our government is supposed to be working for everyone, not just the anti-racists. It's a democracy. It should be helping everybody out. Even if you completely disagree with that person's political perspective, they still have a right to use the government services that they pay for with their tax dollars. But they say white man is not supposed to be here because they took the land from the American Indians after up to 95% died from smallpox. And we're responsible for the 6% of white people that own slaves that they bought from the Africans. As if all of them treated the slaves bad. And as if the people who did get treated bad wouldn't have got treated just as bad in Africa. I don't think they actually recognize how much money it actually took to take them to the New World. I mean, all of that stuff was messed up, but back in the day, they used to send armies through, rape and pillage and kill everybody. Eventually, the white people set the black people free, and then most of the wars have been against racism. But they'll tell you, oh no, there's systemic racism. But all the stuff that they leave out is that it's really institutionalized anti-racism, where in order to come up, to get that fancy government job, or to get that that status on social media, on Democrat-controlled Twitter and Facebook, you gotta attack white privilege. You gotta denounce your white privilege. You gotta say, I'm so sorry. Please forgive me for being white. Please. I promise I'll give up my white privilege. And then what ends up happening then is we're not allowed to enforce immigration laws. We're not allowed to reduce the amount of immigrants. And then the Chinese Nazi Party sends in all this fentanyl that they're distributing through the Mexican cartel and all the illegal immigrants that we bring in through the sanctuary cities in California. For the four and five immigrants that gets across the border, then they end up, now they have 20 illegal immigrants for every homeless person on the street. And the homeless people all banging cartel dope that they get from the illegal immigrants. And they all got fentanyl coming from China. Supposedly they got a surveillance state where they can monitor everybody, everywhere you go. They know everything you're doing. But they somehow get in all of this fentanyl, and somehow magically in every single port city where there's a lot of Chinese, quote unquote, Communist Party businesses selling stuff for money, then you see these networks of corruption going on. And you got to wonder, is this where they're bringing in the fentanyl? Is that why they paid off the people in the port? And then it starts to become obvious what's going on. The Chinese Communist Party is losing control of China because the people are capitalist. The only way they can keep it going is if they do national socialism. And they have to be the world's #1 superpower in order to prove to their people that they're doing a good job so they don't get overthrown by all the 300 million impoverished Chinese out in the countryside. And all the people living in squalor in the big cities where there's all this pollution, where they're getting used for slave labor to make some Chinese Communist Party mouthpiece rich while your family lives in squalor. That's China. That's National Socialism for you. It was horrible back in World War II. It's just as bad today. Maybe even worse. Now the people over there have been brainwashed for so long that they believe this stuff. And then they allow the children of the Chinese Communist Party to come through here for to do foreign exchange school, and then they come and they swoop up and they buy all this massive amount of property, and they jack up the rent. And now in Victoria, Canada, you can't even is that Victoria? I think it's Victoria, Canada. You can't even live in the city anymore because the Chinese bought the whole city up. There was that island in Australia where the Chinese people bought all the land up. Now the locals can't even go to their own island in Australia. It's Chinese territory now. And they're bringing National Socialism to you through funding Democrats, through funding race riots, through funding fake news, through their Chinese Communist Party controlled media propaganda outlets. and state-controlled media. And then your wealth goes down because they attack you. They send in the illegal immigrants with the fentanyl to poison your family because they can't work. The illegal immigrants can't work, so they sell drugs. 30% of federal drug trafficking convictions are from illegal immigrants. Most of them lovely people, but they can't work. They start selling dope. It's a fact. What's in the dope? Fentanyl. From where? China. Why? To target the white man. Because we're the enemy. We're the capitalist. The Latinos are more socialist. Not all of them, about a third of them, maybe 40% are not. But a good 60% of them, they want that handout. They're moving here now 50% of all the immigrants to the United States are from Latin America. 50%. 27% of California not born in this country. Reason why? White man's racist. They took the land from the American Indians, from the Mexicans in the Mexican-American War. They're not supposed to be here because of their skin color. So we need to push these diversity policies so that we could remove the white man from the workplace because he won't hire the minorities because the grades ain't good enough. And that's racism. So you need to lower your standard for the test scores so that you can get the black guys into the workplace. Because you don't want to offend the Latinos because the Latinos are taking over. And you got to hire some of the minorities. So you say that you're promoting diversity while at the same time you won't hire the black people. And the reason why is because the Latinos are the big new customer in town. Because the Democrats rigged the immigration system. Because they want to replace the white people off this land because China's got them back. China's trying to battle us. They want to take our freedom of speech because this show right here is a threat to the Chinese Nazi Party. That means I'm a threat. And 3 out of 5 white males is Republican. And that means that we are the threat. We're the ones that they got to take out. So they hit us with all this propaganda to start up these race riots. They say the white man's this patriarchal, misogynistic pig that is mistreating the women, won't pay the minorities equal because they're kids. They've invested all the money into the kids instead of partying, doing drugs, buying fancy cars, Air Jordans. Instead, they spent the money on education. And then their kids were better off. And then they blamed them for white privilege because they were ahead. Because they did everything right. And the reason why is because it's all a coordinated attack by China. China is doing cyber warfare operations in order to do psychological warfare operations to deliver chemical warfare agents in the form of fentanyl to poison our families, to get them hooked on drugs, to make them not succeed in life so that the Chinese can take all of our intellectual property and then modify it, piggyback us, and then they can be the #1 superpower. Because our kids are hooked on dope. And we couldn't get into the schools because they flooded the schools with foreign exchange students. And they were paying way more money. And they were giving donations to anti-racist causes. They're just saying, yo, we're helping you out. We're promoting diversity, equity, or inclusion and equity. That's it. We're just trying to help end racism and sexism. So you can have all this money to promote this at the universities where our foreign exchange students are paying all this money. And then the university is like, yeah, I'll take it. Yeah, I love spending other people's money. Yeah, totally. Then next thing you know, all the kids at the universities are now radicalized. They all think the white man's oppressing the minorities. Now, got a glass ceiling over top the women. The next coming to burkas. Psh. And once you see the plan from China, it doesn't really work. It doesn't work. Now that we know they're hitting us with fentanyl to kill our family so that we won't succeed, so that their businesses can take over, so that their kids can get better grades, and we have to compete with them. And now we can't get into the good schools because the GPA is too high. Our people can't compete. So that means what? They fall behind. They don't get the good job. And that means what? They start doing drugs. They start banging fentanyl they get from the illegal immigrants. And then they say, I'm bad because I don't like this and I want it to end. And, oh, you're racist because you said that the illegal immigrants were selling drugs. Well, they are selling drugs. You said, oh, they wouldn't hire the black guys because their grades weren't good. Well, it's true. The GPAs, the black African Americans have the worst GPAs. Why? Because they're spending the money on Air Jordans, fancy cars, whips, with nice stereo systems in them so they can impress people. And then they don't invest the money into the education with their kids, and then their kids fail. Because they, instead of being a good father, being in the home, they're out pimping bitches in their new whip with that fat stereo. That they were supposed to spend money on their kids' education, but instead they spend it on themselves and their bitches and their homies. And they just wasted it. And then they say we're bad because we did everything right. As you can see, this is pretty easy to exploit if you're a Chinese military and you want to utilize this to attack your enemy through proxy warfare. It's quite nifty that we have all of these little triggers that we could just send people ads through Chinese Communist Party controlled companies. And then we can hit you with trolls or bots on the internet, make things seem like they're popular when they're not. And then we could trigger race riots with it. All right, if live stream's not over, but this segment's over, don't forget to hit that like button down below. There's a subscribe button next to it. You can go binks, hit that thing and hit that notification bell. You will get notified whenever I go live, which I do quite often. Also, too, best way you can support this channel is to share this video on social media. Also, check us out, rsscommentary.com. Whoa! Sorry about that. Just trying to get the video clip ready. In this next article from the New York Post, Michigan State Representative Cynthia Johnson disciplined by GOP for Facebook video. A Michigan Democrat lawmaker has been stripped of her committee seat after issuing a quote-unquote warning to supporters of President Trump and others in response to receiving death threats. Representative Cynthia Johnson first made headlines over the weekend when she revealed on Facebook that she would be targeted over her handling of hearings last week featuring Trump's personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor. One of the many callers harassing Johnson warned that her time was, quote, time was coming, end quote, and she would be hanging from, quote, the effing gallows. Woo. Let's watch what are they talking about over here? What's going on?
So this is just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. We ain't playing with you. Enough of the shenanigans. Enough is enough. And for those of you who are soldiers, you know how to do it. Do it right. Be in order. Make them pay.
So let me get this straight. She's going to make me pay? I'm a little bit confused here. Is that like a threat? Is she sending her people after me? Am I going to be targeted because I'm the owner of the white privilege factory? In one of the two videos posted to her Facebook. Sorry, actually, we just watched that. I think that's most of what this article is about. They're going to go blah, 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 bloggity, hoopity, hoop block. But I think we got another video of this, of this woman acting crazy as gets.
That's my true feeling. Yes! Now we can finally breathe! That's my true feeling. Yes! Now we can finally breathe! That's my true feeling. Yes! Woo! Now we can finally breathe! That's...
All right. So this woman's like a state representative. Damn. Woo! Damn. She makes Ilhan Omar proud. All I got to say is we have to get these people out of office. We cannot allow these people to run our government because they are just straight up batshit crazy. They all got Trump derangement syndrome. Not all of them. Almost all of them got Trump derangement syndrome. And they regularly freaking out like wingnuts, yelling and screaming at the TV at the top of the lungs because of this racist, privileged white man that's been underpaying the women, put that glass ceiling over top of them, made the income gap, and they won't pay the minorities equal because they won't hire them because the GPAs aren't as good as the whites and the Asians. And the Asians run the place. So you want to get a job up there, they got nets up there to prevent the Asians from jumping off the top of the buildings. All right, so next time you open up your phone, just remember 3 Asians jumped off the top of a building to bring you that phone. Part of the cost of the phone is to replace the nets. If you like this video, smash that like button. Drop me a comment down below. Was it awesome? Did it suck? Am I stupid? Why are you right? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and go ding, ding, ding to that bell so you get notifications whenever I go live, which is quite frequent. Raw and uncensored RSS news and political commentary from the intellectual dark web from Captain Kabuki, yours truly. In our next article from Hacker News, PornHub has been banned from credit card networks. Oh shit, what'd they do? This is coming at us from Ars Technica. Quote, the issue is not pornography, but rape, and quote, wrote the New York Fake All the Times columnist Nicholas Kristof in a column last week that inspired the credit card company's moves. Quote, promoting assaults on children or anyone without consent is unconscionable, end quote. Like other social media sites, PornHub allows anyone to upload content to be shared with others. Many of those videos depict adults engaging in consensual sexual acts. But Kristof said a number of videos show sex acts involving children under the age of 18. Also, too, this has been a problem on a number of platforms, not just PornHub. He also found videos of women being raped, hidden creepy camera videos, and recordings of assaults on unconscious women and girls. So this is woke counterculture coming to shut down some shit. Look, I know you think that women are like this perfect being and they can't do anything wrong and it's only men that do creepy stuff. But the reality of this world is that 1 in 3 women has occasional rape fantasies. So when you see rape porn on PornHub, it is actually geared for women and not for men. While PornHub has a moderation team, it's far smaller than those of the mainstream social media sites, and Kristof found it was ineffective at blocking even the most offensive videos. I make AI. I do know a little bit about what goes on to be able to actually determine what goes on in the videos through my technology I'm building to reverse engineer 3D models from videos. And it is very hard. I mean, you have to convert what the models are doing into 3D models. And you have to be able to analyze the audio for the context and emotional cues. And you have to be able to depict what these people are doing. And it is a very difficult task. Not impossible, just very difficult. Among mounting public pressure, PornHub's owner, a shadowy Canada-based porn conglomerate called MindGeek, took several steps on Wednesday to slow the spread of harmful material. PornHub has banned uploads from non-verified users, which should reduce the amount of abusive material that gets uploaded to the site. PornHub has disabled video downloads, which should make it more difficult for you to wank off. Now you're going to have to do it online. So if you want to wank off with the cord unplugged, you're SOL. So the download should make it more difficult for users to save copies of abusive videos to re-upload to PornHub or another site. Not very difficult. It's very difficult to prevent people from downloading the movie. You just re-encode it. You can't just stamp it. I can just go in there and change the stamp. Or I can rip it with another encoder. But these steps don't seem to have satisfied Visa and MasterCard because they are a woke international conglomerate and they are coming down on your porn. You can't see that video of that chick that you've always fantasized about. Nope. They shut you down. You're just going to have to wank off to her in clothes or those racy pictures she put on Instagram. Well, Christoph seems to have inspired the latest moves against PornHub. Pressures on the site have been building for months. In February, the Baloney Broadcasting Company reported on a 14-year-old girl who was raped and had a video of the crime repeatedly uploaded to PornHub. The U.S. prosecution of the owners of Girls Do Porn, a site that got women to participate in porn using fraud and coercion, has also shined a spotlight on PornHub. Girls Do Porn received millions of views on PornHub. Well, probably shouldn't be doing any porn with people. If you do that, that's the consequence that you're going to have. You're signing that away the moment that that file leaves your site and you can't delete it. Obviously, most of your ex-boyfriends you don't talk to, so maybe it's not a good idea to do that if you don't want those videos being shown to your mother and your father and your grandmother and your grandfather and your uncle and your cousin and all your cousin's friends. Hey, if you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button. There's a subscribe button. You got to hit that. You also got to hit that bell. Ding! Then it will notify you whenever I go live so you can see more raw and uncensored RSS commentary here from yours truly, Captain Kabuki. Don't forget, sharing this video on social medias, the best way you can help us grow. Piss off all the libs and the snowflakes. In this next article from Nonsense Public Radio, Contractors DYNAMITE mountains, bulldoze deserts in race to build a wall, baby! They're destroying wilderness prized by biologists to construct as many miles of border as possible. Woo! Build it, baby! Even though the incoming China Joe administration is expected to cancel the bear. Wait a minute. When did this guy win the election? I'm kind of confused. I mean, I know some states had their elections, but like, it's kind of in the Supreme Court right now, and they haven't actually voted on the president yet. We got this thing, it's called the Electoral College. It's meant to prevent the tyranny of the majority in the big cities because they like to race riot over there. But I guess they think that Donald Trump is doing a coup because he's using the courts in order to, because they're the highest government body in the land, the Supreme Court. They control everything in the government through their judgments. If it's not legal, they will strike it down. If the election was not legit, they will throw the hammer down. And you won't get China Joe up in the White House, the streaking White House groper, the one that a Secret Service agent had to be restrained from punching him after he groped his girlfriend in the White House. True story. Look it up. Biden is the streaking White House groper, a.k.a. China Joe, a.k.a. Creepy Joe, a.k.a. crackhead Hunter Biden's dad. So here is the beautiful sight of the wall that is keeping out all of the Latin Americans or the Latinos from coming and flooding up here and taking over. And they bring drugs and they bring a lot of criminals, a lot of cartel people flooding across the border. 4 and 5 of them getting past the border, uncaught, undetected. Now we got 20 illegal immigrants for every homeless person on the street. They're banging heroin all downtown. You see these little orange caps all over the place. And then you got next to these big skyscrapers, multi-$100 million skyscrapers with people making millions of dollars a year. You got homeless people all over the street banging dope that they're getting from the illegal immigrants and the Mexican cartel. And they're just taking shits on the sidewalk. Dude, you can just be walking down the street just like, doo, doo, doo. You can get cholera, Hep C, Hep A, typhoid fever, black plague, yellow fever, malaria, TB, and COVID when you step on a pile of shit with a hypodermic needle in it next to a bomb banging cartel dope they got from the illegal immigrants in the sanctuary state when he coughs. And if you don't want to stop this, then you racist. And it's you, the racist man, that is the reason why the people are poor, banging all that dope from the illegal immigrants in the sanctuary states. In the Colorado National Memorial, there were Conquistador Francisco Vasquez de Corando entered what is now Arizona. Contractors are pulverizing the wilderness in a rush to put up as many miles of border wall as possible before the Trump administration stays in for the next 4 years after the Supreme Court throws the hammer down on that election fraud from the states that did not follow the Constitution in their laws. Instead of doing what they were supposed to do, which was to allow the state legislators to elect electors to the Electoral College. You ever heard of it? Instead, the corrupt governors and Secretary of State and judges took the power from the legislature and they did a coup to rig the democracy, the election for the Democrats because they hate Donald Trump. So instead of going through all of the legal procedures they were supposed to do, they just skipped those because they didn't have enough time. And they had to get Trump out. So they got $430 million in donations from Mark Zuckerberg. They bought Zuckerbox ballot drop boxes. They put them in Delaware County every 4,000 square miles. And in the Republican counties, they put them every 11,000 square miles. There was a lot more people in the Republican areas. So if you're in the Republican areas, you got to drive some miles. Like, it's next to impossible to find. If you're a Democrat area, oh, they got the ballot boxes right there. And then they got these solar-powered security cameras that turn off at night so they could come in and ballot harvest. And then they didn't use the same signature verification for mail-in as they did for in-person. They relaxed it. They made it so it wasn't the same as the in-person voting requirement, which caused them to not throw out ballots that were unlawful. They allowed unlawful ballots through, and then they got caught stuffing ballots. And they said, oh no, we weren't counting ballots illegally whenever the law said we weren't allowed to. No. You didn't just see that. No. You're like, oh, well, no, you could just run the ballots through and then you'll get the same result. Because we separated the ballots from the signatures. Right? So then you just run through the ballots through, you get the same result, right? Oh, no, but they won't let you audit the signatures because you got to get Trump out because he's building this wall. That means he's racist. He said, grab it by the pussy. So that means he's sexist. And he said Mexico is not sending us their finest people. So that means he's a xenophobe. So that means he's fascist. So you got to do anything in your power to take him out, to stop these good people from building a wall, to protect us from the floods of economic migrants that are coming to get the government handouts from the Democrats. Why the Democrats letting them come in? 2/3 of them vote for Democrats. For a Democrat, they're foaming at the mouth. All their kids are going to start voting for Democrats to get the government handouts. The Democrats are the ones that relax the immigration laws that allow your families to mass immigrate up here. And then we give you government handouts to boost your family size. Because the white man's racist and they took the land from the American Indians after up to 95% of them died from smallpox. And 6% of them owned slaves that they bought from Africans. So that means that we don't belong here because we took the land from the American Indians who also owned slaves. They even owned African slaves. But no, it's just the white man, because the white man's bad. He gives the American Indians handouts that they used to go buy alcohol with. And then they get really drunk and then they kill each other. And so it's the white man that's holding them down from them poor rural states. He's the one that is underpaying all the women in these big Democrat-run cities, just taking the cut. Bam. Won't let them go to work, won't let them go to school, won't let them have no friends. He rapes them, they beat the women, they put burqas on them. But we can't do anything. We can't do anything to stop the migrant caravans because it's racist. Because if you try to protect the white people's majority to ensure that they're able to hold the assets that their family saved, instead, we got to have sanctuary states. We got to Biden says he's going to do a 100-day moratorium on deportations. And why are they doing this? Because the average age of a white person is 58. Average age of black people and Latinos is about 23. Baby boomers are dying off. After they die off, our population, our share of the country as a whole shrinks dramatically. And then white people become a minority in the United States within the next 40 years. Baked into the cake, you can't do anything about it. You didn't know that, huh? Why? Why don't you know that? Because it's taboo to talk about it. How do I know it? Intellectual dark web. It's up on the dark web. When you uncode the main big media, big tech, Wikipedia, Chinese Nazi Party, because they say they're communists, yet they have money. If you want to sell there, you have to bribe the Chinese quote-unquote Communist Party leader. If you want to get access to that slave labor from them Uyghurs or the impoverished people out, the 300 million impoverished people out in the countryside, you got to pay the bribe to the Chinese Nazi Party leader. And they got so much money and bribe money over there. They got more money than Bill Gates. There's a bunch of them. And they've been funneling this funny money all around the United States, paying off Democratic Party officials, paying off everybody at ports where they do a lot of business in. Everywhere Chinese Nazi Party companies go, there's a web of corruption. They're paying everyone off. It's called soft power. Then they hack all our businesses. They steal all our IP, force us to manufacture over there if we want to be able to compete. We got to use their